Hollywood's treatment of women has come a long way, but there is still much work to be done in a patriarchal society dominated by men. One such actress who refused to bow down and compromise was Maureen O'Hara, hailed as the Queen of Technicolor. The actress left their mark in Hollywood for her sensational acting chops, free spirit, and most importantly for paving the way for better treatment of actresses. Impressive as this was, Maureen O'Hara braved many things during her time, including some that caused her too much pain, which ultimately led to her withdrawal from the limelight. Find out all about this and more in today's video. Before she became one of the most prominent stars in the 1940s and 1960s, let's talk about her humble beginnings. She was born as Maureen Fitzsimons on August 17, 1920 at Beechwood Avenue in Dublin, Ireland. Irish people are known for being hard-headed and fighting for what they believe, and that's exactly how the actress grew up to be. Moreover, the actress recalls fondly in her memoir how she was born into the most remarkable and eccentric family she could ever hope for. She was the second oldest child of Charles and Margarita Fitzsimons, and curiously enough, she was the only one out of the 6 children to have red hair. Her father worked in clothing line business, while her mother became a successful clothinger. Prior to that, the would-be actress's mother was also a former operatic contralto from whom she inherited her singing voice. In addition to that, the actress also shared how her mother washled as one of the most beautiful women in Ireland, where men would scramble out of their house just to get a glimpse of her when she looked outside. Blessed with both looks and talent, Maureen Fitzsimons was truly destined to be a star. Growing up, she had a rather meaty build, which earned her that nickname, Baby Elephant. But young Maureen didn't let it get to her. In fact, she reveled in doing all sorts of activities, often associated with boys, such as swimming, climbing trees, riding horses, and playing soccer. The young Maureen even came to a point where she was so caught up in playing soccer that she begged her father to form a women's team. As a young lass, she often played at the Shamrock Rovers FC, citing it as her second home. Her boyish interests continued on well into her adolescence. Instead of opting for cheerleading or other sports tied to girls, she was into judo. Well into her later years, Maureen recalled how growing up she was so jealous of the boys because they had some freedom to do as they pleased, running around causing trouble without getting into trouble. I was a blunt child, blunt almost to the point. "Oh, fruitness," O'Hara said in her biography written by Aubrey Malone. "I told that truth and shamed all the devils. Didn't take discipline very well. I will never be slapped in school. If teacher had slapped me, I would have a bitten her. I guess I was a bold bad child, but it was exciting." When it comes to her education and passion, Maureen started dancing as early as 5 and was enrolled at John Street West Girls' School located in Dublin's Liberty area. While she was attending school here, a curious Maureen decided to get her fortune one day, and the fortune teller told her that she would grow up to become rich and famous. So, the young Maureen went around telling her friends and anybody who'd listen that she would become the best actress in the world. She was lucky enough to be born to a family that fully supported her dreams. She got a taste of the limelight at 6 when she recited a poem on stage in school. From then on, she and her younger siblings started to train in drama, dance, and music, citing how she views her brood as the Irish Von Trapp family. She joined the Rathman's Theatre Company at 10, taking part in production after classes. She had a few roles, but at 12, she was already distancing at 5'6" in, causing her mother to worry about her becoming the tallest girl. Thankfully, she only grew up to 5'8" in, and at 14, she joined the Abbey Theatre. However, Maureen found that the theatre life wasn't for her, even though she won the Dublin Face Award for her performance in The Merchant of Venice under the tutelage of Lennox Robinson. Another experience worth mentioning in Maureen's time here is how she trained as a shorthand typist, which became handy later on in her career as she typed John Ford's The Quiet Man. When Maureen turned 17, the young actress was already turning heads with her beauty and, most importantly, her talents. The Abbey Theatre even offered her first major role, but she was far too distracted by the tension of the multifaceted heroic mind. The latter had his eyes cast in her and even coordinated with the Grisham Hotel where Maureen was having dinner with her family so he could meet her. He spent no time convincing her to do a screen test at Luray Studios so she could become a film actress. She conceded and went to London, but her screen test was anything but pleasant. She was overdressed and had to muck makeup. Despite this, Charles Lone saw her potential and sought the approval of Eric Palmer. After a series of agreements, the actress ended up with a contract at the tender age of 17, much to her family's shock. She made her screen debut in 1938 in Walter Ford's British musical comedy Kicking the Moon Around. However, Maureen never considered this as part of her filmography. If anything, she considers her performance in the British film musical My Irish Molly, released the same year as her first film debut, and it's also the only one credited under her real name, Maureen Fitzsimons. Her first major film role came a year later in the 1939 adventure thriller Jamaica Inn. In the film, she portrayed Mary Yellen and co-starred with Charles Lone, directed by Alfred Hitchcock. This was one of the pivotal moments of her career, since this was the time Lone suggested she change her surname to something shorter like Maureen O'Hara, even though she didn't like either. In the end, the actor was Theon who decided for her, and in latter years she also revealed how nobody was able to pronounce Fitzsimons right. It's also important to know that Charleston also served somewhat as a father figure to her, most probably due to the fact that the actor wanted a daughter of his own. So when Lone died in 1962, O'Hara was deeply saddened and felt like she had lost a parent. But back to the family, since this was one of her earlier works, many critics were quite shocked by her acting chops. On top of being beautiful, one critic even said that there's distinct promise as an actress. The film viewers and critics opened O'Hara's eyes to her own charm. As we all remember, she grew up as Adam Boy, so she was not aware of how appealing or beautiful she really was. The same year in 1939, she starred in one of the projects that would put her into mainstream media, The Hunchback of Notre Dame. The film was under Rico in Hollywood, so she, along with her mother and Charles Lone, left for New York. In film, she portrayed the alluring gypsy dancer Esmeralda, while Ton portrayed the pitiful humpback Quasimo. The film was a commercial success, earning a whopping $3 million at the box office. And although she was praised both for her beauty and performance, others point out Thalton's Quasimodo was the star of the film. After this, O'Hara faced a difficult time when Ten's company closed shop due to the impending World War II and sold the actress's contract to Rico. Heartbroken and betrayed as she was, she continued in the industry. Her next project was John Farrow's adaptation of British play A Bill of Divorcement. It was also a remake of George Cukor's 193 to film, and in this feature, she played Sidney Fairchild. During this time, the actress faced one of the first of many challenges in the industry, which is sadly what happens to many beautiful newcomers in Hollywood. You see, Farrow found the actress attractive and even made suggestive comments toward O'Hara, making it somewhat more difficult for her during production. What's even worse is the director went as far as to stalk her at home. When the actress stood her ground and refused his advances, that's when Farrow made it harder for her, openly bullying her on set. Unfortunately for him, the actress has nerves of steel and was steadfast, ultimately punching Farrow square in face. Only then did his workplace harassment stop, allowing them to finish filming without problems. Later on, find out how her name was dragged and almost cost her everything had she not done this one thing that has never been done before in Hollywood. O'Hara took on a few other minor roles since working with Farrow, including the 1941 release of the American musical They Met in Argentina. The actress already knew it would be horrible, calling it a stinker, a terrible script, bad director, preposterous plot, and forget a blessing. True enough, she got her wish after Harrigan got her a role in the 1941 release of How Green Was My Valley. This was the first of many collaborative projects between O'Hara and director turned longtime friend John Ford. In the movie, O'Hara portrayed Anger Morgan and told the story of a Welsh mining family living in the South Wales Valley during the 19th century. This was the very role that catapulted her to mainstream success, even beating the estimated Catherine Hepburn and Jean Tierney Toth role. Although John Ford was the man who helped Maureen O'Hara achieve commercial success by providing her with a long string of consistent projects, her relationship with the director is a complicated one. One could say binding to Rico is both a blessing and a curse to the actress because, even though it opened a lot of opportunities and wonderful connections with people, the opposite could be said as well. There's no questioning John Ford's directional talent, but personality-wise, the man was not only mercurial, but also had a pretty mean streak. Can you imagine him punching Maureen O'Hara square in the face, and for no good reason they did? And O'Hara braved it just to show him that she could take a punch. Surprisingly, Ford also gave O'Hara a certain extent of artistic freedom when it came to her acting. But he would always have the last word. Still, it was enough to showcase to the world Maureen O'Hara's acting prowess, gaining both critical acclaim and scrutiny from fans and critics alike. Maureen O'Hara had a lot of projects and her starred as the Queen of Technicolor in the war film To the Shores Off Tripoli, where she starred alongside John Payne. It was a pretty forgettable film even for O'Hara standards. She finally found a project worth working on in the 1942 swashbuckler, The Black Swan. The pirate film was everything you could want in a lavish pirate picture, and she enjoyed acting opposite Tyrone Power. The film was a blockbuster hit, but O'Hara's acting was seen as mediocre bimini. Two other films that are deemed instrumental in her acting career were the American film noir, The Fallon's Perro, and This Land Is Mine opposite John Garfield. In these films, she wasn't stereotyped into a pretty face and was able to show a full range of emotions. Ironically enough, O'Hara disliked filming in Technicolor, mostly because it involved a lot of cameras and lighting equipment. She even went as far as saying the lighting gave her clear eye and hurt her eyesight so much. On top of her relating the title to something negative. It was also during her peak Queen of Technicolor era when she first worked with John Wayne in the 1950 American Western romance film Rio Grande, directed by John Ford. This trio would go on to make two other films, namely the 1952 rom-com The Quiet Man and the 1957 war drama The Wings of Eagles. With Wayne, she made two other films that were not directed by John Ford, McClintock, which was released in 1963, and Big Jake, which premiered in 1971. Her chemistry and relationship with John Wayne were so good that most people assumed the two were together, with newspapers publishing stories about two and claiming they had a secret love child. It didn't help that the actress openly revealed how comfortable she was with Wayne, hence, the rumor of them together never died. Plus, out of all her works, Maureen O'Hara named The Quiet Man as her personal favorite and said that it was the one she was most proud of. She went on to star in many more projects, but she was often boxed into a stereotype. Hence, she found working with John Ford ideal for her, except in later years. Finding a man who is a provider and protector can be pretty hard, especially for a strong independent woman like O'Hara. Moreover, she was raised as a devout Catholic, which is why her string of marriages caused her distress given how Catholicism views divorce. Her first marriage was a secret one, and it was to an Englishman named George H. Brown, whom she met while working on the set of Jamaica Inn in 1939. She was only 19 at the time. Her second marriage was to the American director William Houston Price in 1941. At the time, Price was working as Hunchback of Notre Dame's dialogue director, and their courtship was pretty fast. They consummated their marriage immediately, something she deeply regretted. Little did she know there were worse things to regret about her marriage to Price, as she soon found out that he was an alcoholic. But O'Hara never thought of leaving him, especially since they had a daughter named Bronwyn Bridget. The actress's first marriage had a steady decline in the early 40s, and as much as she wanted to file for divorce, her Catholic faith left her feeling guilty. It took a decade before Price himself ultimately filed for divorce on the grounds of incompatibility. After her separation from Price, O'Hara started dating a wealthy Mexican politician named Enrique Parr, who she said helped her during her tumultuous times with Price. As much as she loved him, the actress had to leave him and said that it was one of the most painful things I have ever had. Toto. Her third and final marriage was to Charles F. Blair Jr.B., who was 11 years older than her. He was a prominent figure at the time. The man was a former brigadier general of the U.S. Air Force, former chief pilot of Panama, and the pioneer behind transatlantic aviation among other achievements. They tied Technet on March 12, 1968. And despite being big shots in their own respective fields, both O'Hara and her husband chose to live a relatively peaceful life away from the limelight. During this time, she had already turned her back on acting and focused on helping her husband run his small airline company. Unfortunately, their time together was cut short after Blair tragically died when his plane crashed while he was flying from St. Croix to St. Thomas. Because of this, she was named the head of his company until she passed it down in 1981. Like all female Hollywood stars, O'Hara was also subject to tabloid news, although some of them are harmless and they're spiteful. There was one time the actress fought back and earned their respect of the media as well as every O'Neill's in the industry. When she dated Denrick Parr, she found that many people were not in favor of their relationship simply because they didn't like him. John Ford, for one, was so against it that it affected their professional relation. On a personal note, he was not too keen in the actress's divorce from Price, especially since he too was a devout Christian. Her ex-husband Price also did not favor their relationship, so much so that he harassed her and even filed a case seeking custody for their daughter, Bronwyn. He cited immorality as the ground for his lawsuit, rather than cave in and settle like most women of theater time would do. O'Hara fought him tooth and nail at court. She filed a counter-lawsuit charging him with contempt for refusing to pay monthly child support. All of this feats were impressive enough as it is, but not as impressive as her filing a lawsuit against Confidential magazine. You see, when the actress was datinkpera, the magazine made allegations that O'Hara and the Mexican banker were engaged in sexual activity during a screening at the Grauman's Kinesa Theater. They wrote how she had entered regimens wearing a white silk blouse neatly buttoned, insinuating that they were doing something indecent. In reply to these outrageous claims, Maureen O'Hara filed a $5 million lawsuit against Confidential magazine. She proved her innocence by showing her passport, stating that she was filming for a project in Spain. This win may not amount to much for some, but it's monumental, especially for women. There were some discrepancies in this proclamation, though. O'Hara stated in her autobiography that she won the case, but her memoir, written by Aubrey Malone, stated that the actress and Confidential settled it out of court. In her twilight years, Maureen O'Hara was riddled with a lot of health issues. In 1978, she was diagnosed with cancer of the uterus and had to undergo surgery to remove the tumor. At the time, she was in close correspondence with John Wayne, who wept alongside her when she was given the all-clear. When Wayne died a year later, the actress fell into a deep depression that lasted for many years. In 1989, she suffered not one, not two, but 6 successive heart attacks in New York City, which required her to undergo angioplasty. She also suffered a stroke in 2005 that prompted her to relocate to Glengarriff. Her family also reported that she had experienced elder abuse back in May 2012, so it was decided she would live with her grandson in Idaho. Even though her last years were spent with memory loss and type 2 diabetes, Maureen O'Hara peacefully died in her sleep on October 24, 2015 in Boise, Idaho.